All right, so this is the start of something completely new on the channel. We're going to do it like this now. We're going to do the NFL recaps and college football at the same time. Now, I had already been thinking about something like this, but it took me a hot minute to kind of figure out what in the world was going on here to where I can make it streamlined, where I can, talk both the NFL and college football at the same exact time without, you know, making separate videos, because that's been a bit too time consuming and I just don't have the time like that. I literally do not have the time, barely have the time to wake up and make this. Came home, went to sleep, and it was like, okay, I need to get up. So, after a quick nap, after a nice little siesta, decided to come on out and make this video tonight. So I'm gonna have one more for you on Friday night. Nothing's happening on Friday, so might as well just do what I need to do. Make a video talking about lacrosse, but we'll talk about lacrosse on Friday. So first, let's talk the NFL. The last 2 weeks have been pretty chaotic. More injuries, more craziness, more inept natures on offense. Like Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo, they were able to, dismantle the Eagles on defense. Like the Eagles offense looked horrible. The Eagles defense looked horrible last Thursday night, or rather 2 Thursday nights ago. And it's like the Broncos, the Jets still have no wins yet. Yes, they finally have a takeaway, but Justin Fields did eventually get benched. So, there's that. Like, Justin Fields got benched, which is crazy to me. Like, how do you get benched? Because the Jets lost to the Broncos, then lost to the Jets. So so the Jets, I don't know what's going on with them. The fact that Tyrod Taylor is basically starting now, means a lot. Seahawks continue to win. They're 5-2 now. They beat the Jags first. They beat the Jags first in a game that wasn't really, all that, wasn't really as close as you think. Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter, Trevor Lawrence, they all look off. They look out of sync. That whole offense for the Jags looks out of sync. Losing to the Seahawks and then losing to the Rams in London 35-7 is just not a good look. You know what I'm saying? Jacoby Brissett is starting for the Cardinals now, which is crazy. Jacoby Brissett has been a long journey veteran. Almost beat the Packers. Of course, there was a play at the end where they could have beat the Packers, but they did not. Yet the Cardinals are the Cardinals. Just not a great team. They've been just perpetuating around, hovering, being around, the kind of team that they've been. And again, the Seahawks beating the Texans too, going back to the NFC West real quick, which everybody's 5-2. The injured 49ers with CMC basically running the show, 5-2. The 49ers beat the Falcons in a game where they put up a lot of defense, contained Michael Penix, and it was a good time to be a 49ers fan. But yeah, the Seahawks 5-2 too. Sam Darnold has been on a tear with Jackson Smith and Jigba. That man has been catching. He's had over 100 yards in basically every game this season. So that's a dynamic duo out there. The Lions were able to beat the hapless Buccaneers. Again, the Bucs are injured. Baker Mayfield finally had a bad game. Mike Evans is basically out for a hot minute. And, it is what it is. Like, the Lions, a bit of a contrasting type team. They were able to beat the Bucs, but they could not overcome the Chiefs. There were some penalties and stuff like that in that game with the Chiefs. But, again, the Chiefs, they basically have everybody back now. Rashee Rice is back. Xavier Worthy's back. And now the Chiefs have been rattling off a couple straight wins. They beat the Lions, then they shut out the Raiders, who And speaking of the Raiders, Max Crosby, could he be a Dallas Cowboy? We'll find out. We'll find out. Speaking of those Dallas Cowboys, embarrassing loss to the Panthers. Like, this is just, how do you let Bryce Young, play the game that he's been playing? He played magnificent. Rico Dowdle played magnificent. It's crazy. But yet, the Cowboys instead decided, okay, we had an embarrassing performance against the Panthers. Okay, let's follow it up with a beatdown of the Commanders. Deron playing getting pick six. Jay Daniels getting injured yet again. And Marcus Mariota coming in. It's like, wow. Wow, guys. Way to be consistent week to week. So much ineptness on like, again, the number 1 offense, number 32 defense. It's rough. Speaking of defenses that are rough, the Giants defense, yes, they were able to, somehow keep Philly contained, but they could not keep the Broncos from scoring 33 points in the fourth quarter and coming back and winning this game. Bo Nix and the Broncos should not have won this game. They shouldn't have. They really shouldn't have. And yet, they did anyway. They did. Like, the Broncos are in position to be in position despite their offense being absolutely lackadaisical. It's crazy. Speaking of things that are also crazy, like Tua Tagovailoa, he's basically got benched. He got benched. It's rough out here. This Browns team isn't even that good. You have Dylan Gabriel, well, he wasn't really balling out. It was more Quinshon Judkins balling out. But, Tua may be cooked, guys. When you have Quinn Ewers, former Texas Longhorn Quinn Ewers, trotting out there instead in your place, it's like, you're a lost team. You're a lost cause. I get the Titans are a lost cause, but, they're still going to have Cam Ward out there. Titans are a lost cause. The Vikings, I honestly don't know. Carson Wentz is inconsistent. Yeah. They were able to, keep up with the Eagles. Is that good enough? The Bills, same thing. They've been very inconsistent over the past couple weeks. You lose to the Falcons. You take a week off. You have a week off. Can you fix things in time for the Panthers? Which is crazy. Crazy that the only game in the new window that's worth talking about for week 8 is Bills Panthers. CJ Stroud is basically just like the Texans look terrible again. Jags, they're still 4-3, but it's they are faltering fast. They are faltering very, very fast. The Commanders, Mariota's all right, but he's not going to lead you to the promised land. The Cowboys and the Broncos, oh God, what kind of matchup do we have at 325? What kind of matchup is this, bro? Yeah, this Cowboys offense, which has been on its hair. CD's back in the lineup. George Pickens is playing pretty good football. Javonte Williams is also playing pretty good football. You have a pretty good offense with the Cowboys. Well, the number 1 offense with the Cowboys. And then this Broncos offense, which is hard to digest, but a really good Broncos defense, though. Giants-Eagles, second bout between these two teams. A lot of the country is going to be seeing this game, but I am not. Absolutely not. No. It's the Giants. It's still the Giants until further notice. Yes, the duo of, Scatterboo and Dart, they're cool and all that, but, it's still the Giants at the end of the day. The Packers have been quietly, staying, at pace. They're technically the number 1 team in the NFC right now. The Colts, my God, that offense led by Daniel Jones and that defense too. The Chargers are a hard team to figure out, by the way, as well. Justin Herbert's, he's playing decent football out there, but it's the Chargers just continue to not make it, good when they need to make it good. So, Like the Bears are actually, looking nice. Just crazy to me. Like the Bears have a winning record right now. The Bears are 4-2 right now. But last year they were 4-2 and they collapsed. So, you know. But yeah, week 6, week 7, these 2 weeks in the NFL showed us a lot more injuries as well. Like some teams are more devastated than the others, like the 49ers, the Bucks, the Chargers, just devastated, especially at Chargers O-line. My God, devastated by injuries. And other teams are flourishing with the new rules they've been given. Again, a lot of guys have been given some new rules. So I don't know what's going to happen in the long run, Don't know what's going to happen in the long run. We still are barely, we're barely a quarter. Well, I mean, shoot, we're a little over a quarter in the season, close to halfway. So I'm not sure what we're going to get this week. We're going to get something, but I don't know what we're going to get. So in any case, let's shift over to college football. And then let's talk college football. Let's shift on over. The last couple weeks in the college game have been pretty interesting. We start, last Friday night with my UNT Mean Green, my alma mater getting throttled by South Florida. So many turnovers in that game, though. There were like 8 turnovers. But ultimately, South Florida scored like 35 in the third quarter, and it was just too much. Ty Simpson, Alabama, looking real good. They beat Missouri. They beat Tennessee. Ty Simpson is looking fantastic out there. Jam Miller at running back, he's been playing some pretty good football, and that Alabama defense making plays when they need to. Cincinnati is ranked, after, they won, that game against Iowa State, and they've been playing some pretty good football. They beat UCF by 9. And then this past week, they what did Cincinnati do this week? They beat the brakes off Oklahoma State. So no more James Franklin, no more Billy Napier, no more Jay Norvell, not Mike, Jay Norvell. So many head coaching firings over the past couple weeks too, which is insane to me. Really, really crazy stuff. Ohio State is still the number 1 team in the country until further notice. Julian Sayin has finally been playing like a guy who could, actually do something, as far as the Heisman is concerned. And the Heisman has just been kind of just like, it's a toss-up at this point. Like, who is actually going to want this? The only other guy that we could talk about is the guy we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, Ohio State dismantled Illinois. Then, they beat the brakes off Wisconsin, shutting them out. So, honestly, Ohio State, is clear-cut number 1 in the country and should have been ranked number 1 to begin the season anyway, but we already knew that. Notre Dame continues to win as well. Notre Dame beat the brakes off of NC State, then beat USC in a game where their defense showed out. Yes, USC was able to beat Michigan, but Bryce Underwood and the Wolverines decided to counter and say, we're going to beat Washington, beat them up pretty bad with our run game. And, finally, you can say Michigan's offense actually did something, nice. Oklahoma, on the other hand, it was rough. It was rough. Like, for them against Texas, and again, that Texas offense is just inept at every possible way. For Oklahoma to get embarrassed like that, not scoring a touchdown yet again against Texas, losing 23-6, as I was passing by the Cotton Bowl, as this game was happening, as I got off work and everything like that. And it's like Oklahoma, they were able to do something, They were able to do something against South Carolina. They were able to beat South Carolina pretty handily, but it's South Carolina. South Carolina has not looked good. In fact, probably the worst preseason projection I think I've had, in quite some time. Like South Carolina, Lenore Sellers ain't looked too great. at all. So, they lost to LSU, and then they lost to Oklahoma. It's just not fun. Ole Miss, I mean, Trinidad Chambliss is for real, but a dog fight with Washington State kind of proved a lot of things. That ended up being that Georgia offense yet again doing what they do best, which is somehow finding a way to win. And they were able to overcome Ole Miss in that fourth quarter with 17 unanswered. Ole Miss packed a punch, but Georgia's punch was mightier. And it's like, this is the same Lane Kiffin nonsense that happens every single year. Like, I'm expecting another loss somewhere. Watch it be, this upcoming week. Georgia Tech, still unbeaten. What can you say about Georgia Tech that hasn't already been said? Still unbeaten. Speaking of the teams that are unbeaten and about Heisman contenders, Fernando Mendoza, Indiana, is going to be on your watch list. The collision course between Indiana and Ohio State could be imminent, as basically all the tough challenges that they have are gone. They're gone off the face of the earth. Indiana decided to run roughshod against Oregon. And, the Oregon offense was able to try, but it just wasn't enough. Like, that Indiana offense is for real. Kurt Cignetti got an 8-year extension for a reason. He got an 8-year extension. Like, it's crazy. Again, Tennessee, another team that has been looking kind of shaky. Yes, Joey Aguilar's good, but you can't allow 31 to Bacon Bits. You can't allow 31 points to Arkansas. It is what it is. And then Florida, again, Billy Napier is gone. They lost Texas A&M, had a rough game against Mississippi State. It's like, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. And in Georgia, again, there was some penalty issues in that game against Auburn. But again, they were able to, put the punch in the middle, against Ole Miss. And then Texas Tech, yes, they beat Kansas, but ultimately Sam Leavitt, Jordan Tyson, and an Arizona State Sun Devil, team was finally able to knock them off. Yes, the $28 million didn't work. $28 million didn't work. And if BYU's still unbeaten, they were able to beat Arizona, Utah, who had beaten the brakes off of Arizona State. The holy war between BYU and Utah, they clashed, and BYU was able to come away with the victory. Missouri, Vanderbilt, Diego Pavia is him. LSU finally took another loss. Brian Kelly could finally say, hey, Brian Kelly is not him. But we already knew that, Missouri had to survive against Auburn, and Auburn just continues to be one of the unluckiest teams in college football. Another close loss. Now Missouri and Vanderbilt take center stage for game day this week. South Florida basically leading the way for the group of 5 as Navy's not ranked, and their schedule gets tougher. UNT is, speaking of UNT, speaking of Navy, I will be at the UNT Navy game on November the 1st. So just FYI, guys, I will be there. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. I'm going to have to get up pretty early to go to this game, but I can't wait to get back to Denton. I said I was going to go back to Denton for a game. I just didn't think it'd be that one, but I'm excited for it. Really excited. And the only other team is Memphis, but they lost to UAB. As far as the group of 5 is concerned. Oh, yeah. Don't forget, there's some other teams in the ACC that we need to watch out for now. Virginia. Yeah. Yes, Washington State played them close too, but Virginia, having the season they've had. Louisville, who upset Miami, and of course Carson Beck threw 4 interceptions though, because he's Carson Beck, and we all knew he's garbage. So, it's yeah, we got some pretty interesting teams, and we got some pretty interesting races because of how big these conferences are, Georgia Tech is clearly in front. Louisville, Virginia, they're all there. Now Miami is just kind of pacing around, just kind of trying to figure out where in the world do we fit in the grand scheme of things. Where in the world do we fit? I don't know yet. Texas A&M, I mean, they're still number 3, but like, I don't think this looks like a number 3 team in the country. I'm waiting on them to slip up. They're the next team I'm waiting on to slip up. Like, yeah, Marcel Reed and company, they're doing pretty good things, but I'm waiting on them to slip up. They got to slip up at some point. They really do. Oregon decided to rebound by beating the brakes off of Rutgers. It was Rutgers, though. So, no big deal there. But yeah, week 9, there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered. Ole Miss and Oklahoma, 2 teams that don't look that great. They're going to be some answers. We're going to get a little bit of separation in the AAC with South Florida, Memphis. Again, Memphis just lost, and South Florida sitting pretty at number 18 in the country. Of course, not even the best offense in the country, though. That belongs to my Mean Green. UCLA has somehow, gotten themselves. And speaking of teams like UCLA, Northwestern, they've been pulling off wins in the Big Ten. There's a reason why Penn State looks terrible. And there's a reason why James Franklin finally got fired, and that $49 million buyout is there. Like, it's rough out here for some of these teams. But Indiana, could they just cruise all the way, or do they have to keep looking over their shoulder? Because UCLA, they were able to make Penn State look, pedestrian. So I don't know. Georgia Tech, all they got to do is stay unbeaten. That's all they got to do too. Stay unbeaten, stay the course, and get yourselves ready for Georgia in a month. So that's all they got to do. South Carolina looks hapless, and Ty Simpson and that Alabama offense continues. They continue to move and groove. Illinois, don't count them out yet either. Again, BYU is continuing to march. So many top-ranked teams have been upset over the past couple weeks. We had 9 this past week. We had, 6, 7, or 8, something like that, the week beforehand as well. And then game day is finally returning to Vanderbilt for a game that'll be on ESPN, though, because they had to put Alabama, South Carolina on ABC. Again, the Big 12, there's a lot of pieces to figure out. Cincinnati, Texas Tech, BYU, Arizona State, basically leading the way. And again, tiebreakers are going to decide a lot of this stuff. Texas could become bowl eligible against Mississippi State. Mississippi State ain't no slouch, though. Remember, Wisconsin, are they going to finally get rid of Luke Fickell? Luke Fickell should be next on the chopping block if they don't even put up a fight against Oregon this week. They got to put up a fight. Wisconsin has basically done absolutely nothing the last 2 weeks. So it's go time. It's put up or shut up time. And then Garrett Nussmeier and those LSU Tigers, take on Texas A&M. Again, I'm waiting on A&M to slip up, but LSU's offense is pretty inept. So I don't know. And then Michigan, if Michigan can take care of business against Michigan State, we might have a collision course between them and Ohio State again. Could be. I could be wrong. And then other teams like Tennessee or Louisville or Arizona State, they're going to have some tough outs in a way. Kind of Houston is no slouch for Arizona State, though. That is not a game to, that is not a game to say oh, well, we're going to stand by idly and, not do anything. So, yeah, that's week 9 of college football, getting ready for that. Of course, the madness already started with more weekday Conference USA action, but who cares about Conference USA? I don't. Unless a team from Conference USA wants to show me that they're actually something, I don't care about that conference. So, yeah. Week 9 is basically here. Week 10's TV times have not been set yet. But again, I won't even be, watching Vanderbilt, Texas. I'll be at the UNC Navy game. So, we'll worry about week 10 when we get to it next Wednesday. So, hope you guys enjoyed the new format. This is going to be the way going forward. It'll make these videos a bit longer, but I'd rather have, 30 minutes to discuss everything and get my thoughts out the way instead of like, oh, well, making 2 separate videos it's just too time consuming at this point. So I'm not going to do that anymore. And I was already leaning towards, combining the two anyway. So, and again, last week, it didn't really, was really way too busy last week with other things, getting that money up to even talk football, to even say anything about anything, because I just didn't have time for anything last week. So in any case, that'll do it for me. Again, I hope you all enjoy this new format, and there should be some shorts maybe at some point. I don't know, Saturday or something like that. I don't have anything else. I do have something on Friday, but that's it. So in any case, Big Boy is signing out. See ya.